Hare.
Hare Krishna.
Start.
Hare Krishna. We start today's Bhagavatam class. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrutam Naram Chaiva Narottam. Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tata Jayamudire. Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. भगवती उत्तम श्लोके भक्ति भवती निष्ठिकी. Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam. Today we continuing Srimad Bhagwatam Canto 12, new chapter 2, from shloka number 1 to 4, symptoms of the Kali Yuga. Sri Shuka Uvacha Tatah Chanodinam Dharmaha Satyam Shocham Kshamadaya Kalena Brina Rajan Nakshanti Ayu Balam Smriti Pitam Eva Kalaundrunam Jalma Achara Guna Udaya Dharma Nyaya Vyavasthayam Karanam Balam Evahi Dampate Bhiruchi Hetu Maya Eva Vyavaharike श्रीत्वे पुंसत्वे च हीरति विप्रत्वे सूत्रम एव हि लिंगम एव आश्रम ख्यातौ अन्योन्य आपत्ति कारणम वृत्त्यानय दौर्बल्यम पांडित्य चापलम वच. ट्रांसलेशन एंड परपट बाय द श्रीला प्रभुपाद. जगत गुरु श्रीला प्रभुपाद की जय. Shukdev Goswami said then, okay, religion, truthfulness, cleanliness, tolerance, mercy, duration of life, physical strength and memory will all diminish day by day because of the powerful influence of the age of Kali. In Kali Yuga, wealth alone will be considered the sign of man's good birth, proper behavior and fine qualities. As law and justice will be applied only on the basis of one's power. Men and women will live together merely because of superficial attraction, and success in business will depend on deceit. Womanliness and manliness will be judged according to one's expertise in sex, and a man will be known as Brahmana just by his wearing a thread. A person's spiritual position will be ascertained merely according to external symbols, and on that same basis, people will change from one spiritual order to the next. A person's propriety will be seriously questioned if he does not earn a good living, and one who is very clever at juggling words will be considered a learned scholar. Purport by the Srila Prabhupada, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. During the present age, Kali Yuga, practically all desirable qualities will gradually diminish as described in these words. For example, dharma, which indicate a respect for higher authority that leads one to obey religious principles, will diminish. In the Western world, theologians have been unable to scientifically present the laws of God or indeed God himself, and thus in Western intellectual story of rigid dichotomy has arisen between theology and science. In an attempt to resolve this conflict, some theologians have agreed to modify their doctrines so that they conform not only to proven scientific facts, but even to pseudoscientific speculations and hypotheses, which, though unproven, are hypocritically included within the realm of science. On the other hand, some fanatical theologians disregard the scientific method altogether and insist on the veracity of the antiquated dogmas. The bereft of scientific Vedic theology, material science has moved into the destructive realms of gross materialism, while speculative Western philosophy has drifted into the superficiality of relativistic ethics and inconclusive linguistic analysis. With so many of the best Western minds dedicated to materialistic analysis, naturally much of Western religious life, separated from the intellectual mainstream, is dominated by irrational fanaticism, and unauthorized mystic and mystery cults. People have become so ignorant of the science of God that they often lump the Krishna consciousness movement in with this odd assortment of fanciful, fanciful attempts at theology and religion. Thus, dharma or true religion, which is strict and conscious obedience to God's law, is diminishing. Satyam, truthfulness, is also diminishing simply because people do not know what it is. Without knowing the absolute truth, one cannot clearly understand the real significance or purpose of life merely by amassing huge quantities of relative or hypothetical truths. Kshama, tolerance, or forgiveness is diminishing as well because there is no practical method by which people can purify themselves and thus become free of envy. Unless one is purified by chanting the holy name of the Lord in an authorized program of spiritual improvement, the mind will be overwhelmed by anger, envy, and all sorts of small mindedness. Thus, daya, mercy is also decreasing. All living beings are eternally connected by their common participation in the divine existence of God. When this existential oneness is obscured through atheism and agnosticism, people are not inclined to be merciful to one another. They cannot recognize their self interest in promoting the welfare of other living beings. In fact, people are no longer even merciful to themselves. They systematically destroy themselves through liquor, drugs, tobacco, meditating, sexual promiscuity, and whatever other cheap gratificatory processes are available to them. Because of all these self destructive practices and the powerful influence of them, the average lifespan is decreasing. Modern scientists seeking to gain credibility among the mass of people often publish statistics supposedly showing that science has increased the average duration of life, but these statistics do not take into account the number of people killed through the cruel practice of abortion. When we figure aborted children into the life expectancy of the total population, we find that the average duration of life has not at all increased in the age of Kali, but is rather decreasing drastically. Balam, bodily strength is also decreasing. The Vedic literature states that 5,000 years ago, in the previous age, human beings and even animals and plants were larger and stronger. With the progress of the age of Kali, physical stature and strength will gradually diminish. Certainly, Smriti, memory is weakening. In former ages, human beings possessed superior memory and also did not encumber themselves with a terrible bureaucratic and technical society as we have done. Thus, essential information and abiding wisdom were preserved without recourse to writing. Of course, in the age of Kali, things are dramatically different. In the age of Kali, a man is considered high class, middle class, or low class, merely according to his financial status, regardless of his knowledge, culture, and behavior. In this age, there are many great industrial and commercial cities with luxurious neighborhoods reserved for the wealthy. On beautiful tree-lined roads with aristocratic homes, it is not unusual to find many perverted, dishonest, and sinful activities taking place. According to its criteria, a man is considered high class, is enlightened. If activities are dedicated to promoting the happiness of all creatures, every living being is originally happy because in all living bodies there is an eternal spiritual spark that partakes of the divine conscious nature of God. When our original spiritual awareness is revived, we become naturally blissful and satisfied in knowledge and peace. An enlightened or should endeavor to revive his own spiritual understanding, and he should help others experience the same sublime consciousness. The great Western philosopher Socrates stated that if a man is enlightened, he will automatically act virtuously. And Srila Prabhupada continues, but in the Kali Yuga, this obvious truth is disregarded, and the search for knowledge and virtue has been replaced by a vicious animalistic competition for money. Those who prevail become the top dogs of modern society, and their consumer power grants them a reputation as most respectable, aristocratic, and well educated. This verse also state that in the age of Kali, brute strength, Balam, will determine law and justice. We should keep in mind that in the progressive Vedic culture, there was no artificial uh, dichotomy between the spiritual and the public realms. As civilized people took it for granted that God is everywhere and that laws are binding upon all creatures. The Sanskrit word dharma therefore indicates one's social or public obligation as well as one's religious duty. Thus, responsibly caring for one's family is dharma, and engaging in the loving service of God is also dharma. This verse indicate, however, that in the age of Kali, the principle of might makes right will hold sway. In the first chapter of this canto, we observe how this principle infiltrated India's past. Similarly, as the Western world achieved political, economic, and technological hegemony over Asian lands, bogus propaganda was disseminated to the effect that Indian and in general all non-Western religion, theology, and philosophy are somehow primitive and unscientific, mere mythology or superstition. Fortunately, this arrogant, irrational view is now dissipating, uh, and people all over the world are beginning to appreciate the staggering wealth of spiritual philosophy and science available in the Sanskrit literature of India. In other words, many intelligent people no longer consider the traditional Western religion or empirical science, which has virtually superseded religion as the official Western dogma, necessarily authoritative merely because the West has politically and economically subdued other geographic and ethnic configurations of humanity. Thus, there is now hope that spiritual issues can be contested and resolved on a philosophical level and not merely by a crude taste of arms. Next, this verse point out that the rule of love will be applied unequally to the powerful and the powerless. Already in many nations, justice is available only to those who can pay and fight for it. In a civilized state, every man, woman, and child must have equal and rapid access to favor. In modern times, some refer to this as human rights. Certainly, human rights are one of the more obvious causalties of the age of Kali. Just as human life as a whole has a great and serious purpose, namely spiritual liberation. Fundamental human institutions such as marriage and child rearing should also be dedicated to that great objective. Unfortunately, in the present age, the satisfaction of the sex impulse has become the overriding, if not the exclusive reason for marriage. The sexual impulse, which induces the male and female of almost every species to combine physically and in higher species also emotionally, is ultimately not a natural urge because it is based on the unnatural identification of the self with the body. Life itself is a spiritual phenomenon. It is the soul that lives and gives apparent life to the biological machine called the body. Consciousness is the soul's manifest energy, and thus consciousness awareness itself is originally an entirely spiritual event. When life or consciousness is confined with the biological machine and falsely mistake itself to be that machine, material existence occurs and sex desire arises. God intends human life to be an opportunity for us to rectify this illusory mode of existence and return to the more satisfaction of pure godly existence. But because our identification with the material body is a long historical affair, it is difficult for most people to immediately break free from the demands of the material molded mind. Therefore, the Vedic scripture prescribes sacred marriage in which so-called man and so-called woman may combine in a regulated spiritual marriage sheltered by overarching religious injunctions. In this way, the candidate for self-realization who has selected family life can derive satisfaction for and simultaneously please the Lord within his heart by obeying religious injunction. The Lord then purifies him of material desire. In Kali Yuga, this deep understanding has been almost lost, and as stated in this verse, men and women come animals solely on the basis of mutual attraction to bodies made of flesh. In other words, in our modern godless society, the weak, superficial intelligence of humanity rarely penetrates beyond the gross physical covering of the eternal soul, and thus family life has, in most cases, lost its serious purpose and value. A corollary point established in this verse is that in the age of Kali, a woman is considered a good woman if she is sexually attractive and indeed sexually efficient. Similarly, a sexually attractive man is a good man. The best example of this superficiality is the incredible attention 20th century people give to materialistic movie stars, music stars, and other prominent figures in the entertainment industry. In fact, pursuing sexual experiences with various types of bodies is similar to drinking old wine from new bottles. But few people in the Kali Yuga can understand this. Finally, this verse states that in the Kali age of Kali, a man will become known as priest or Brahmana merely by wearing ceremonial dress. In India, Brahmanas wearing a sacred thread, and in other parts of the world, members of the priest class have other ornaments and symbols. But in the age of Kali, the symbol alone will suffice to establish a person as a religious leader despite his ignorance of God. The previous verse stated that in the age of Kali, the priestly class will be recognized external symbols alone. And this verse extends the same principle to the other orders of the society, namely the political or military class, the business or productive class, and finally the laborer or artisan class. Modern modern sociologists had demonstrated that in those societies chiefly governed by the Protestant ethic, poverty is considered a sign of indolence, dirtiness, stupidity, immortality, and worthlessness. In a God-conscious society, however, many persons voluntarily decide to dedicate their lives not to material acquisition, but rather to the pursuit of knowledge and spirituality. Thus, a preference for the simple and the austere may indicate intelligence, self-control, and sensitivity to the higher purpose of life. Of course, in itself, poverty does not establish these virtues, but it may sometimes be the result of them. In the Kali Yuga, however, this possibility is often forgotten. Intellectuality is another causality of the bewildering age of Kali. Modern so-called philosophers and scientists have created a technical esoteric terminology for each branch of learning. And when they give lectures, people consider them learned simply because of their ability to speak that which no one else can understand. In Western culture, the Greek sophists were among the first to systematically argue for rhetoric or efficiency above wisdom and purity. And sophistry certainly flourishes in the 20th century. Modern universities have very little wisdom, though they do possess a virtual infinity of technical data. Although many modern thinkers are fundamentally ignorant of the higher spiritual reality, they are, so to speak, good talkers, and most people simply don't notice their ignorance. Thus end the purport. Om Jnanatimirandasya ज्ञानाञ्जन शलाकया चक्षुर्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। श्री चैतन्य मनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवान् च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजन सहितं कृष्ण चैतन्य देवं श्री राधा कृष्ण पदान् सगण ललिता श्री विशाखान्वितांच नमो ओम विष्णुपदाय कृष्ण प्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात देशतारिणे वाञ्छा कल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा दंडवत प्रणाम. We start second chapter of 12th canto, symptoms of the Kali Yuga. Here, Shukdev Goswami told to the Parikshit Maharaj how the Kali Yuga's symptoms are in like a religion, truthfulness, cleanliness, tolerance, mercy, life duration, physical strength, and memory. All these are due to the powerful influence of the age of Kali will diminishes. Then again, they told about the uh, different signs of men and women also. Prabhuji will tell you in detail. Hare Krishna Dandavat Pranam. Vancha kalpatarubhe cha kripa sindhubhe cha patitanam pavan.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. When the bad qualities of Kali Yuga will increase to an intolerable level, the Supreme Lord will descend as Kalki and destroy those who are fixed in his religion. And then a new Satyuga will begin. So, though there is darkness, fear, there's also a light at the end of the tunnel that Lord will re-establish religious principles. And that is what Lord always says. Paritranaya sadhuna vinashaya cha dushkritam dharma sansthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. So Sukdev Goswami is saying that because of this effect of Kali, what is going to be destroyed is religion, truthfulness, cleanliness, tolerance. It is RTCT. And then mercy, duration of life, physical strength, and memory. So everyone will become egoistic. There won't be any religion, no practices. There will be only selfishness. There will be only deceit. There will be uncleanliness. There cannot be any tolerance. There will only be anger. And anger will give rise to fights and wars. And because no one will be ready to do any kind of a mercy, there will be degradation. So automatically, the Ayu is going to come down. The strength will come down. And even memory will diminish. And Srila Vasudev could foresee all these things. And that is why this important knowledge was written down by him, all the Vedas, all the religious scriptures. It was predicted so many years ago, and which we see today is that wealth is only the most important factor. Whether you are having a good birth, proper behavior, or fire qualities, no. If you have wealth, then everything is acceptable. You will get law, you will get justice if you have money power. And that is what was coming true even today. And then we see about how instead of love, instead of bringing about Krishna conscious children, instead of having proper marriage, coming together of two families, there will be the men and women living together only for attraction. So, womanliness, manliness, that is something which is going to be judged based on their sexual expertise. And even if you are having only a thread, one you will be considered as a Brahmana. So, complete degradation. Whether we are actually progressing spiritually will not be considered. They look at external symbols, what kind of Shakti you have developed, Siddhis you have developed. And that is why people will keep on moving from one spiritual order to another. So the propriety will be questioned. And everything will depend on earning a good living. If you are able to speak nicely, juggle the words, you will be considered a scholar. And that is the cause for whole degradation, because the knowledge as given by Krishna as it is not going to be transferred now. There will be people who will be giving their own interpretations. And so the real wisdom, the real explanation which Krishna has given will be lost forever. And it is against this background that we really appreciate what Srila Prabhupada has done for us. He has been so merciful to create this systematized movement, give us a sadhana right from our waking up till we sleep, wherein we remember Krishna continuously, enabling us to go back home, back to Godhead. Hare